I'm Mike, and if you've been with us a while, you know I love unpacking psychological concepts and stories for all the meaning they hide under the surface.
And I'm Manon. Today we're peeling back the layers on something close to our hearts, our favorite movies. 6 films total, 3 each. Some iconic, some surprising, but all of them unforgettable. This episode is one part film nerd, one part science, and totally personal. We're digging deep into why your favorite films are more than entertainment, they're psychological mirrors.
Now, if you haven't seen any of these films, and why haven't you seen any of these films, then maybe wait to listen to the podcast, as we are surely going to be providing some spoilers today. So why do we keep going back to the same movies? Why can't our brain get enough of these theatrical gems? We plan to explore this and more, but first, last week we went psychological with a deep dive into our love of pets.
I shared the story of Ick, my cat who left a permanent paw print on my heart before passing way too soon.
And I talked about Bert, who stuck with me through a painful divorce. It was a touching episode, but full of fun. Here's the game plan. We're going to walk through the psychological science behind people's movie selections. We'll explore 3 movies each, breaking them down by plot, themes, Easter eggs, stuff like this. And for the first time, Manon and I are in pixels.
Before we get started, we have a very important announcement.
This episode will contain spoilers, once again, for our favorite movies.
I mean, all of these movies have been out for decades at this point, so if you haven't watched them, we cannot be held liable.
And again, why haven't you watched these movies? I mean, like, let's be real. These movies, and you haven't heard them yet, but when you do, you're going to love them. These movies rock. Now, let's start with the hardware. Your brain. Watching a movie isn't passive. It's a full-on neurological event.
Here's a tour of the brain during movie watching. The amygdala fires up during intense emotions. Think horror thrillers or tearjerkers. The hippocampus encodes those memories. That's why movies from your childhood feel timeless. The prefrontal cortex is going to handle moral reasoning and empathy, key for dramas and layered characters.
Okay.
The mirror neurons help us feel what characters feel, facilitating deep empathy.
Right. So mirror neurons, they kind of help us to sort of like feel what other people are feeling. And chemically, the brain goes on a ride, right? I mean, we've got dopamine, which is that rewarding moment, sort of like neurotransmitter for feel-good endings. You've got oxytocin, which is the bonding chemical. It's what makes characters feel close to fictional characters. Cortisol kicks in during suspense. That tension, it's real stress, just safely simulated.
There's also something called physiological synchrony. Your heart rate, your pupil size, and even skin conductance align with on-screen action. So you're going to feel what those characters are feeling.
Yeah, and when you're watching with others, your bodies actually start to sync up with the other people, especially during intense scenes. And like, that's collective emotion in real time.
That's why you're going to jump at the exact same time as the person sitting next to you.
Right.
So let's talk catharsis. Aristotle nailed it with his theory of tragedy. Stories help us purge emotion. That's why sad or tragic films can feel cleansing.
Yep, emotional catharsis, crying over Mufasa or Jack and Rose. That's your psyche releasing grief in a safe container. There's also conditioning at play, classical conditioning. Watching a movie in a cozy, happy setting links that film to comfort. Operant conditioning, emotional payoffs reinforce rewatching. That's why, laughing and crying, it's addicting. And then there's parasocial relationships. We form one-sided emotional bonds with these characters. These relationships drive loyalty and repeated rewatching.
Psychology also lives in how we process these stories. So the schema theory, which is we prefer to have these stories that match or lightly challenge our worldview. Cognitive dissonance shows up in movies all the time where you're trying to resolve internal tension, like justice being served, and that helps us feel aligned with these characters. When you're fully immersed in a story, our brain encodes it deeply. That's why we make certain films unforgettable.
Yeah, and I mean, storytelling is ancient, right? It's an evolutionary advantage. So you have this thing, fitness signaling, which is telling or appreciating stories, and that really showed intelligence and empathy. You also had the hero's journey, our love for epic quests, right? And it's tied to survival narratives. Emotional calibration, scary, dramatic films, they train us emotionally without any real danger.
And let's not forget social learning. We absorb social cues, morality, and behavior from all the characters that we watch. All you psychology geeks out there, remember the Bobo doll experiment? Shout out to Bandura.
Yeah, Bandura was a freak. So movies also shape our reality and identity. We have in-group identity, social proof, right, where we're more likely to love a movie if everyone else does. Sharknado. Let's be honest, that movie was terrible, but everyone watched it, right? A bunch of bandwagon morons. You've got a lot of these things that really affect us psychologically.
They become emotional time capsules, not just for you, but entire generations.
They really do. And let's not forget genre preference, right? It's personal. People who score high in openness on the big five like fantasy and sci-fi. Extroverted people love action and comedy.
And then we have the attachment styles as well. So we have secure attachment, that's going to be emotionally rich films. Anxious, you're going to rewatch for reassurance. Avoidant, you're going to lean towards action or detachment.
Yeah, and your developmental stage matters, right? The movies you love during identity formation, childhood, adolescence, they become like your lifelong favorites. Think stuff like The Goonies. Now, here we go with our movies. So, spoiler alert, but my number one is the Big Lebowski. Now, this one's all about the vibe, man. The humor, the randomness, the unforgettable dialogue. I mean, the whole premise kicks off with someone pissing on the dude's rug. And the thing is, it really tied the room together. That sets the tone perfectly, but what really hooks me back and forth between the dude and Walter is that back and forth dialogue that they have. It's chaotic, it's weird, it's totally dysfunctional, but it's beautiful. And let's talk about the plot. The dude gets pulled into kidnapping, right? All because of someone peeing on his rug, right?
But it really tied the room together.
It did tie the room together. The themes, absurdity, life, identity, counterculture. Right, the Coen brothers actually wrote the dude based on a guy they knew. An Easter egg, Walter's behavior, a mirror of post-war American trauma. Character arc, or lack thereof. That's the point. He just abides. And the fact that Sam Elliott is the narrator is just pure gold. And there's this moment where the dude floats through a surreal sort of bowling dream after getting drugged, right? And his mind detaches completely, like a Zen master who's just discovered White Russians. And there's this ashes scene where Walter is up there and he solemnly eulogizes Donnie. And then he dumps out the urn, right? And all of the ashes blow right into the dude's face. And the guy's going on and on about Vietnam, and he wasn't even in Vietnam. It's absurd. It's tragic. Grief and detachment in the same breath. The dude's bathrobe becomes his armor, and his apathy somehow becomes the calm eye in a swirling existential storm. It's not about the rug, man. It's about the principle. But the dude just shrugs, right? Meanwhile, Walter's yelling about a rug that really ties the room together. The chaos of life, my friend. I mean, that's what this movie is all about.
Oh, yeah, definitely.
Now, what's your third?
So my third, when I was in middle school, there's a backstory. I took a speech class. It was by far my favorite class, and we were encouraged to do monologues from our favorite movies.
Nice.
My brother did the infamous Goonies monologue, where Chunk is throwing fake puke on the theater full of people, resulting in them all subsequently throwing up on each other. And so I decided that I was going to exclusively do monologues from the Addams Family values.
Very nice.
These included Wednesday's historically accurate Thanksgiving speech and Debbie's murderous spiel. And I don't think my teacher liked me too much after that, and she was not very impressed.
Teachers.
So there are themes of nonconformity, satire, found family. We have this subversive group identity where all of these people are a little off, they're a little weird, but somehow it all kind of comes together.
Yeah.
And there's a fan theory that after this, Wednesday becomes a revolutionary,
Nice.
and she kind of continues to lead these people on a charge.
I love that.
So if you don't know, Addams Family Values is the sequel to the 1991 movie starring Angelica Houston, Raul Julia, and Christina Ricci, among many, many others. This cast is absolutely star-studded.
Yeah, I mean, like, let's be honest. Who can forget Christopher Lloyd as Fester?
Exactly. And this movie focuses on him trying to find a love like Gomez and Morticia. The entire movie is written as a parody of the perfect suburban family. They flip every traditional family value on its head, and they're actually the most functional family in the movie somehow. They model acceptance and unconditional love. They live in a Gothic mansion with their own cemetery and dote on each other constantly. And I think that they are the ultimate couple goals. After they find out they're having a baby, Morticia immediately gives birth. Like, there's no time in between her. She's like, Gomez, I'm having a baby. And then there's a baby.
I'm not sure if that's good or bad.
I feel like that's preferable, honestly. Okay. Just immediately, like, you don't have to think about it.
True.
With a growing family, they have to hire a nanny. Unfortunately, the children, Wednesday and Pugsley's antics, make it really, really impossible until they meet Debbie Jelinski, who's played by Joan Cusack. She stumbles into their home and is seemingly unfazed by the murderous children. She begins to try to seduce Uncle Fester, who she perceives as an exorbitantly wealthy man who can be easily manipulated and then offed.
That too.
Little does she know that the Addams family is incredibly hard to murder. Wednesday quickly catches onto her ploy, so she decides to send them and her brother off to summer camp.
Nice.
So they end up at Camp Chippewa. They're greeted by two incredibly chipper camp counselors and are expected to assimilate. They force the two children and Joel, a young boy who immediately falls for Wednesday, to sit in a cabin watching Disney movies and the sound of music until they can act appropriately. Wednesday emerges with a massive smile, and she is seemingly cured. The children are set to perform a Thanksgiving play with all the popular children obviously playing the Pilgrims, and the outcasts are the Native Americans. Naturally, they make Wednesday Pocahontas. She rehearses the play as expected, but opening day, she takes the lead and utterly destroys all the hard work of the counselors, Becky and Gary. She gives a devastating speech about how her ancestors will be forced to live on reservations while the Pilgrims will wear cardigans and drink highballs. She ends with one of my favorite lines, "We've decided to scalp you and burn your village to the ground." Which is exactly what she does.
Yeah, and they may have deserved it.
They definitely did. I feel like it all played out exactly how it should have in that scene.
Great scene.
So while this is all playing out, Debbie's married Fester. They've moved into a grandiose house, and she has decked Fester out in a white suit and a toupee. By this point, she's attempted to end his life multiple times, each ending in absolute failure. Morticia tries to reason with her by expressing that Debbie has enslaved Fester, which she can respect. But pastels?
True.
This all culminates with Debbie trying to blow up their grandiose pastel house with Fester inside, which again does not work. He comes out carrying the roast that he had made for their anniversary.
I remember that.
It lives in my head rent free, and so does Macho Man because of this. She drives to the Addams family house after this, and with the intention of ending all of their lives, and unfortunately is thwarted by a mustachioed baby named Pubert.
Nice.
It turns out that Debbie is a black widow who's been killing off wealthy men and living on their money. So she killed, she maimed, so she destroyed one innocent life after another. But she's a human being. She yearns, she aches, she shops. Thankfully, a knife-wielding baby electrocutes her and saves the family.
You know, I think the beauty of this movie is that the Addams, they refuse to assimilate. They embrace their identities, quirks, their darkness. The summer camp scenes, right? They're a great contrast because they force positivity and even cultural erasure, which is what makes Wednesday's rebellion powerful. I mean, it's, again, radical authenticity.
I think it also plays out in the way that the Addams handle grief, death, and the macabre. They don't fear it, they celebrate it. Psychologically, that's a form of radical acceptance. Instead of denying pain or fear, they make space for it, which is surprisingly healthy. Speaking of healthy, can we just talk about how Gomez and Morticia are the ultimate couple goals? Passionate, supportive, maybe a little unhinged, but in the healthiest way possible.
You know, Manon, I can tell you just got married for sure. And, you know, Morticia and Gomez, what about those engagement photos?
I mean, who can resist a sparkly black dress and a pair of scissors?
And vintage candelabras.
I did have real vintage candelabras. They were my grandmother's. And they were in a cemetery.
And that beats pumpkin spice barn pictures, am I right?
Oh, 100%. It was either one of the two, and I had to go with where my heart was taking me.
You know, some people say till death do us part. You two said from death onward.
Exactly. Romance isn't dead. It just wears eyeliner.
Now, for my second movie, I'm going to go with The Shawshank Redemption. And man, this one gets me every time. Where the Big Lebowski was cotton candy and fried Oreos and some pretty deep philosophy. If you've seen the movie, you'll see. The Shawshank is my soul food. If the Lebowski was all about floating through life, Shawshank is literally about digging your way through walls, right? The walls that it puts around you. And so the plot of this movie is Andy Dufresne. He is wrongly imprisoned for killing his wife. And basically finds, a way to free his mind and then his body. And the themes are, things like hope versus despair. You have corruption of institutions, quiet persistence, right? I mean, how long does it take with a little pick to get yourself through a wall? The character arc, he starts as a mystery, right? But you watch him sort of chip away, both literally and metaphorically, at a world designed to crush him. And, there's some behind the scenes stuff. Freeman's voiceover wasn't even planned. They added after test. Audiences loved sort of this narration. And there's a lot of symbolism in this movie. The poster, the hammer, even the library, all tools of internal freedom. There's this scene when Andy locks himself in the warden's office and he puts on Mozart. And time just freezes. No words, just sound piercing through the despair. I can see all those prisoners standing out in the yard, just kind of looking up into the sky. Another time, Andy gives Red a harmonica, which is an invisible act of rebellion. It's a trust in the future. But it's really the final scene on the beach that seals it for me. Andy, arms wide in freedom, Red approaching across the sand. Every step echoes with earned hope. It's dopamine after a decade of drought.
And Red's transformation might just be as powerful as Andy's, from institutionalized to rehumanized.
Totally, right? I mean, you walk away believing in something bigger if you've watched this movie. It's the kind of film that really stays with you for life. And I just remember always feeling so good when I watched this movie.
And it's a very different Stephen King movie.
It really is.
Like, it doesn't even touch his other stuff. There's a lot of hope in this one.
There is. Now, what about your number two?
My number two is gonna have to be Interview with a Vampire.
All right,
the movie is one where I actually created a rule that I had to read the book before watching the movie. Anne Rice is a fantastic author, but I struggled while reading her magnum opus and first novel, Interview with the Vampire, because her favorite thing was diving deep into the history of every character. And I was already in love with them all. So I didn't feel like I needed that extra push to fall in love with these characters. Sure. It's also led to my refusal to watch the new television series, which people assure me is fantastic, but I may never know.
You may never know.
I don't think I will. There are lots of themes throughout this movie, like guilt, detachment, the ramifications of immortality. We have identity stasis, moral ambiguity. We form these really deep levels of empathy for these morally gray characters. So, like, you have Lestat, who's just kind of awful, but you can't help but like him.
Yeah, you like him.
So Interview begins with a young man named Daniel Malloy, and he's interviewing Louis de Pointe-du-Lac, who has made claims that he is a vampire. He begins by asking if he should start his story like David Copperfield by going into his birth and life before he was born into darkness. His story begins as a 25-year-old plantation owner living on the outskirts of New Orleans in 1791. He's grieving the loss of his wife and unborn child and drunkenly wanders the French Quarter looking for anything to distract him from his miserable existence. That is until he stumbles upon Lestat de Lioncourt, who brutally attacks him before giving him the choice he never had, which is a recurring theme: turn him into a vampire or dump him into the Mississippi waves. Louis quickly accepts his offer, but continues to struggle with this decision, choosing to drink the blood of rats and other animals as opposed to taking a human life. Lestat knows that all he needs to do to find Louis is to follow the corpses of rats, which causes Louis to flee into a home of a plague victim. The mother has obviously been dead for quite some time, but a small tow-headed girl is quietly crying for her mama. He feeds on the young girl and once again flees when Lestat catches him in his shameful act. When he arrives back home, he finds that Lestat has turned this young girl, Claudia, as a present for him. This convinces Louis to stay, and the two raise the girl as their daughter. While Louis loves this young girl, Lestat sees her as a prodigy, someone to train, someone to make into the perfect vampire. This comes to an almost tragic end when Claudia has developed well past her appearance and attempts to murder Lestat, leaving him in the cold Mississippi after feeding him two boys who have been overdosed with laudanum, which apparently keeps the blood warm. You're not supposed to drink dead blood. This is a big thing throughout the novel and the movie.
I did not know that.
I didn't know you shouldn't drink dead people's blood. So Louis and Claudia flee in a search for other vampires throughout Europe, only for further tragedy to strike our poor Louis. He eventually returns to New Orleans and finds Lestat, who has been sustaining himself on the creatures living in the swamp. So alligators, snakes, those kinds of things. The movie ends with Daniel begging Louis to turn him, which frankly pisses Louis off because it's apparent he did not understand this story at all. Daniel leaves with his tapes and drives off, only to be visited by Lestat, who once again provides a choice that he never had. The star-studded cast for this incredible film includes Brad Pitt and Tom Cruise as Louis and Lestat, a very young Kirsten Dunst as Claudia. Christian Slater is the journalist. Antonio Banderas is a ancient vampire. It's really quite impressive, all of these people that show up. The movie focuses on the challenges of good and evil when morally gray characters are involved. There is an existential dread that haunts Louis, literally and psychologically, like guilt and loss.
Yeah, Louis, played by Brad Pitt, is practically a walking crisis, right? I mean, he's immortal, but he's constantly, constantly questioning what it means to live, which, you know, I guess humans do the same thing. It's a classic case of someone stuck in an eternal identity crisis.
He plays right into the idea of repression, too. He tries to repress his nature, while Lestat, his maker, played by Tom Cruise, is the complete opposite. He leans into it.
Embraces it.
He is id personified, all impulse, hunger, and domination.
So, really, Interview with a Vampire isn't just a horror movie. It's a commentary on identity, morality, trauma.
Yeah, it's one of those things that kind of leaves you thinking throughout. It's not the bite that scares us in this instance. It's the emotional wounds they carry for centuries.
For sure. And I mean, centuries, right? Living for centuries would be rough. As much as it might sound great, it would be pretty daunting.
Well, you lose everyone you've ever loved.
You really do.
You have to go through that grief constantly.
You do. Now, moving to number 1, I have Eternal Sunshine of the Spotless Mind. This movie hit me like a truck the first time that I saw it. And not just because, you know, of the trippy sort of mind-bending visuals, but I was actually going through something very similar at the time, a relationship that was really confusing, super painful, but beautiful at the same time. And now the plot of this movie, Joel and Clementine erase their memories, right, of each other after a breakup, only to rediscover their connection mid-erasure. The themes are things like regret, impermanence, emotional growth, identity through pain, right? Jim Carrey had to completely rein himself in. Kate Winslet, to be honest, she stole every scene.
Oh, yeah.
And this is why I love the movie, if I'm going to be real. The beach house collapsing, the faceless crowd, it's all memories falling apart. And, you know, some people actually think that the whole thing loops endlessly, like Joel and Clementine are trapped in a cycle.
That's kind of what I thought it was going to be.
Yeah, when I first saw the movie. And I mean, that's a great idea. It actually makes it better in some ways. But the idea of erasing someone from your memory, I mean, it's tempting. But, you know, when you're hurting, it's really tempting. But as the film says, it says, wait. No, even the pain is part of the love. Even the bad memories mean something. Clementine, I mean, I fell in love with her character. The chaotic, free-spirited, emotional energy. And I've always been drawn to people like this. You know, I like strange, artsy, hippie, goth types, right? I mean, she feels real. And Joel, that awkward, quiet guy trying to hold it all together, sometimes I felt like I was him. There's this one scene where he's trying to stop the memory wipe. And this is my favorite part, right? He's trying to hide Clementine in other parts of his mind just to keep her. I mean, that's love, right? And he's panicking. Desperation. There's regret. I mean, it just crushed me. And it also helped me stay at peace, really, with staying in my relationship rather than running. So yeah, Eternal Sunshine isn't just my favorite movie. It's personal. It's a personal anchor. The idea of erasing heartbreak, it's tempting, but we're nothing without our scars.
And I mean, it's a great reminder that healing doesn't mean forgetting. It means feeling it differently.
Exactly. Messy, but beautiful.
And speaking of messy but beautiful, my number 1 is Moulin Rouge. It's my comfort movie. I could watch it over and over again. I know people probably hear Moulin Rouge and comfort movie and don't necessarily think that those align.
Great movie.
But I still feel each and every emotion that Baz Luhrmann carefully incorporated into the film. The movie is what is referred to as a jukebox musical, which means that songs that are well-loved, pre-existing songs are incorporated. Oftentimes the style is used used to highlight one artist, like Mamma Mia being built around the songs of ABBA, or Bohemian Rhapsody, the biopic about Queen, uses only their music.
Yes.
Moulin Rouge features over 70 songs from a variety of artists like Elton John, Queen, David Bowie. They're intertwined to tell the story of the tragic bohemian, Christian, and his love with the courtesan, Satine.
Got it.
The themes of this movie are that there's this penniless writer and he falls in love with this courtesan, and they have this doomed love from the start. But there's also this like desire for freedom and this like era of excess that they're living in. There's lots of like things going on in my brain, like the release of oxytocin. There's sensory overload. It's a beautiful, stunningly done movie. So the film begins in Paris in 1900 when Christian begins penning his story on a typewriter, which I actually have the same typewriter.
Nice.
He arrived a year earlier in the Montmartre district of Paris to join the Bohemian movement as a writer. There's one major problem, though. Christian has never been in love.
Oh.
A ragtag troupe of performers literally fall into his lap, and he begins working as their writer to craft a show called Spectacular Spectacular. Among this cohort is Henri Deleuze-Lautrec, which is based on a real post-impressionist artist who is known for his work on the real Moulin Rouge cabaret in Paris. You can actually see his artwork there still. After they have written a few songs and crafted a storyline about the foreign concept of love, they take their show to the Moulin Rouge in hopes of impressing the sparkling diamond, Satine. Confusion ensues, and Satine mistakes Christian for a very wealthy duke whose funding could save the brothel and turn it into a real theater. The real duke is incredibly controlling and demands Satine as well as the deed to the Moulin Rouge for his help setting up this new theater. The two lovers continue to meet in secret, writing songs that are a secret code that express their true love. This movie will make you laugh with scenes like the can-can showing excess and debauchery of Paris, which includes the song Smells Like Teen Spirit.
Beautiful.
Which was actually approved by Courtney Love.
I love that.
She auditioned to be Satine, which I can't see it. Nicole Kidman is just burnt in there. You'll also definitely cry if you're anything like me with the song Come What May plays for the final time. The film profoundly impacted me as a young girl and has maintained its spot in my top 3 because it shows that while seasons may change, goodness may help balance it out.
Yeah, the movie shows that there is a great power in embracing freedom, right? Beauty, truth, and above all things, love, while showing the bittersweet nature of life, right? The inevitable loss. It's like Shakespeare drank absinthe.
Oh, 100%. And if we're being honest, this movie emotionally wrecks me. I sob every single time. Don't judge me.
That's me with Eternal Sunshine. I'm not judging.
I'm just a hopeless romantic with a soft spot for Ewan McGregor and dramatic musical mashups.
Look, I think the beauty of it, right, is the fact that that it is so romantic, right? And though things will inevitably be different, memories will always hold a place in our hearts. There's often no resolution, just raw, unfinished heartbreak. But that's life, right? Love doesn't always save the day, but it can leave you with a good story.
I definitely think that's why the Moulin Rouge in Paris made my bucket list.
Okay.
I successfully checked it off a couple years ago and was surprised by my wonderful boss at the time. They got me tickets to the actual show.
Nice.
So I have actually been inside of
That
the
is so
Moulin
cool.
Rouge. And I will always cherish my last ever glass of champagne in the place I never dreamed that I would actually get to be.
I mean, honestly, that is a beautiful story. And you know, did you just say the greatest thing you'll ever learn is just to love and be loved in return?
Oh, yeah. And I'll stand by that until my dying day.
You're going to stand by that.
Yep.
All right. I like that. So what I love is that our lists are different in tone, right? But psychologically, they really do orbit the same stars.
Oh, yeah, definitely. You can kind of see the parallels in these stories, even though they're completely different.
Sure.
They all touch on identity, memory, resilience, transformation. All of them circle the same psychological roots. Whether it's vampires or prisoners, we're watching people try to become.
Yeah. And I think that's what makes all good movies really good, right? You're seeing character growth, you're seeing determination, you're seeing a love story, you're seeing romance, but I mean, ultimately you're seeing people, right? And that's what we connect with. Whether it's a vampire, a prisoner, or a slacker with a rug, we're watching humans try to make meaning in chaos. And that's why favorites evolve with us. Movies meet us where we are, and sometimes where we wish we were. And that's a wrap on episode 10. Thanks for joining us for our very first video episode.
If this sparks something, like, subscribe, and share it. What's the movie that lives in your bones?
Yeah, I mean, the three that live in my bones, I'm not sure I want them in there.
Yeah.
I'd keep them in my head. Guys, DM us your comfort rewatches. Which characters feel like a family to you?
Next week, we'll delve into psychopathy and discuss a few true crime stories.
If you want to get creeped out, tune in.
Until then,
Keep planting thoughts.